Hello everybody, welcome to this quick tutorial on how to create a grid for your design space. Now in the last tutorial I very quickly showed you how to create these margins, so if you haven't watched that tutorial already and you're wondering what these blue lines are, please do go back, watch that tutorial and that will help you to create margins so that you can then place a grid within those margins to use as a structure to identify exactly where you should place your design elements so you have a nice consistent spacing. So let's proceed. So the first thing you want to do is bring up the grid tool. So we head over to the line tool. We either hold or right click depending on your keyboard setup and bring out the options, the additional options under the line tool. We want to go down to the rectangular grid tool. Okay, now before we rush off and start dragging and dropping to create a grid, we just need to do one thing, and that is just to click anywhere once on the page, because that brings up a dialog box for us and allows us to choose how many rows and how many columns we would like. Now in this example I'm just going to create a 12 column grid. It's a very commonly used grid in design, whether it's apps or newspaper magazines. So I'm not having any horizontal dividers in this particular grid. I'm just having vertical dividers. Now to have 12 columns I need to have 11 dividers. So I've got 11 here, so I'm just going to click OK. And here is my grid. So I'm just going to press V to get the direct select tool, so you'll see my cursor has turned black. Now I can position this. Okay, I'm going to intersect with my margins, and then I'm going to grab the bottom corner. So you can see I have the resize symbol, the two arrows pointing away from each other, and this will allow me to drag and drop and resize my grid within my margins. And now I can release and I have a grid. So the grid is not quite complete because I have columns but I do not have gutters, and gutters are a very important part because they create that little bit of spacing between elements. So design elements such as typeface, header, sort of display fonts are not butting up right next to each other. So I'm going to show you how to create some gutters. So ensure that your grid is selected. Now, first of all, we want to start by making the stroke nice and thick. So we're going to go to a 6-point stroke. Okay. So now we can see we have thicker lines between our columns. So the next thing we want to do is to go to Object and Expand. We're expanding Fill and Stroke. Just click OK. So now what we have is we actually have a line around the thickness, the 6-point thickness. So we've actually expanded the shape. So you'll see what I mean when I make these last two changes. So I'm going to take away the fill, okay, and now I'm going to add a stroke instead. And now you can see, if I zoom in, that we have these gutters as well as the columns. This creates that nice space between design elements. As with the margins, we want to lock this down. Before you lock it down, you might want to take the opacity down a bit so it's not quite so jarring and visually interfering with your design work. So we can take the opacity down, take it down to about 25% roughly. Okay. I'm just going to click off the page somewhere so you can see what that looks like where it's not highlighted. And now we can see we've got some nice faint columns. So again, I'm going to go to the Layers panel, go down to the bottom, to the New Page icon, indicates creating a new layer. I'm going to just work out where I'm keeping my grid lines by using the Hide and Show next to the layer, so I can see at the moment my grid lines are in layer 2. I'm going to call this grid, press return, and now I'm free to work. I can lock that up, sorry, and I'm free to work in layer 3 without worrying about accidentally grabbing my grid or my margins. But what this will do, will allow me, when I use shapes, such as the rectangle tool, Illustrator will recognize the columns behind and it will give me an indication when I'm intersecting exactly with those lines. Okay, so this gives you the opportunity to decide which part of the column you wish to align, your text box, your header display text, your images, icons, graphics, etc. So you can decide how you might want to align those using your guidelines. So I hope you have benefited from this tutorial and that the guideline tool would be useful. Don't forget, if you want to create a modular grid, you can do so by just creating the required number of horizontal guidelines as well and follow the same step. And you will have the guide that you need to help you with your artwork. So play around with it. It really helps, and it helps provide a nice professional feel and keep you organised. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Email regine.freeman@port.ac.uk. Thank you.